Manchester United 4, Bournemouth 1, and I tell you what, as far as pre-season games go, that was really entertaining, really bright, really promising, and genuinely quite dominant. I was really impressed by this Manchester United performance, and it leaves us with a lot of hope as we head towards the start of next season. Now, of course, it is still just a pre-season game, but I still think we saw some really interesting things. So we are going to start off in the first phase, and it feels like we do this for pretty much every single Manchester United match video, and we're going to start off with a slight negative, and that is that situation that Manchester United often find themselves in where we struggle to play through the first phase. We know we've got the centre-back in midfield, I'm not going to talk about that today, but we know that sometimes we have a problem progressing the ball through the middle of the pitch. And in particular, early on, there were a couple of moments where Yoro had a slight issue. He was trying to play balls inside of the pitch and they just weren't coming off, like you can see in this situation here. And normally that might be a concern. But fortunately, what Manchester United had in this game was a solution. Now, normally United's structure looks very much like this. It's quite narrow up the pitch. So you've got the two forwards are quite a narrow structure from United. But what we saw in this game was much more width. And that did a much greater job of pinning Bournemouth, putting them into positions they didn't want to go to. And that allowed Manchester United to progress the ball quite well in a really direct manner. So Ahmad in particular on the right hand side would peel into a really wide position. And what he was trying to do was open up the path to Højlund. So Manchester United would start off by playing the ball deep, would go to Lenny Yoro. The opposition are going to press, Bournemouth are going to come forward and try and get us. What we would then see is Ahmad starting narrow initially, but then he would peel wide into this position here. And what it allowed United to do was then go long into the feet of Højlund. And because he had more time, more space than what he usually does, he was much more effective with his hold-up work. And again, I think it was a pretty bright performance from him. There's still moments where he needs to move the ball a little bit quicker. He's taken too many touches. He's still not fully confident and doing things naturally just yet. But again, it was brighter. He looked a bit more confident than what he has in the past. And some of his link work was actually quite good and it allowed United to get into situations like this actually really quickly. So yes, there is still that concern, of course, with the build-up phase. We know we have that problem, but it was nice to see different solutions. I also think Ahmad did some really good work with his hold-up play, almost being used a little bit like a wide target man where you send the ball long to him and he's going to protect the ball, and that allows United to get up the pitch. Now, I do just quickly want to interrupt the analysis to ask a massive favour. If you guys could please subscribe whilst you're here, it would be amazing. The support recently has been insane. I can't put it into words how grateful I am, but around 65% of people still aren't subscribed to the channel. So if you could subscribe, it would make a massive change to this channel. It would help so much, and if you do that, then the channel can continue to grow. So if you could please press subscribe, that'd be great. So yeah, back to the football, and let's talk about Manchester United continuing to try and progress the ball through the pitch. And what we saw in this game at times was really quick football from Manchester United. And what I enjoyed about it was that often it was in the middle of the pitch, which is something that we've struggled to do since Amorim came into the club. In this game, it looked quite a bit brighter. There was some really good work done in the middle of the park. But I think the reason why we were able to do that work in the centre was because of the work that we were doing out wide. And when I say the work we were doing out wide, I mean the wing-backs. Dalot and Dorgu were really advanced with their positioning from really quite early on. So they weren't too fussed about dropping deep and getting involved in the build-up in these positions. Dorgu and Dalot would both push really high up the pitch. And what this does is it forces Bournemouth into a back four. So it forces the fullbacks to play deep, and the centre-backs are occupied by Højlund. What we could then see is the likes of Ahmad and Mason Mount dropping a little bit deeper and actually almost becoming midfielders. I mean, look at Ahmad like here and here and here. He's basically an extra central midfielder. And what this allowed was time and space for United. So the wing-backs are pushed forward. They've really pinned Bournemouth into that back line. And then we've got our little 4 versus 3 situation in midfield. And we know that we've got some seriously technically gifted players in the middle here. And at times, the combination work with United sort of staggered in the midfield line, which I think is important. But the combination work, the ability to play around the corner, was actually really exciting. It was really impressive. When you get players like Bruno Fernandes, Ahmad and Mount in their flow, you're going to get something good. The only thing I will say to point out a negative of this is it is quite risky football. When you are playing the ball around the corner quite a lot, when you are playing quick 1-2 touch football, it's fun when it comes off. When it doesn't, you're in a little bit of trouble. And I think Casemiro got a little bit exposed a couple of times as Bruno Fernandes was pushing forward. We could lose the ball trying these risky passes, and Casemiro was a little bit isolated. So I would say, you know, it's fun, it's exciting, but what United still need to do is manage the tempo a little bit better. I think we need moments where we then slow it down. Despite actually playing really well in this game, United still didn't have large spells of possession where we were controlling the ball and keeping Bournemouth pinned back. So yes, it was good. It was fun. We were cutting through them quite nicely at times. But I still think we need to realise the moments where now we slow it down and we just keep the ball for a few minutes. We don't need to make it a basketball game, particularly when you're 4-0 up. Take those moments where you slow the game down, you manage the tempo. We perhaps still lack that profile in the squad. We lack that central midfielder in particular that can do that. Mainu is perhaps one of the ones that can, but he didn't start this game. He didn't play too much. So, yeah, just something to think about, but the signs are promising. The other thing that I found quite promising was glimpses of Manchester United's wide play, and again that came from the advanced positioning of the wing-backs. We've said already that the wing-backs pushed really high up the pitch and that pinned the opposition back, and that continued as we moved up the pitch. So Dalot would move forward and pin the fullback. Dorgu would move forward and pin the fullback. The problem for Bournemouth was that the wingers were still trying to engage relatively high. They weren't necessarily going man-to-man in the press, but they were still reasonably high up the pitch. So what this did was it actually created some big open spaces in these two zones here, just in front of the two opposition fullbacks. And this is where Manchester United could actually start to explore and move the ball forward. So Ahmad and Mount, particularly when the ball was on one side and we moved the ball across, they could find space. So let's say we've got the ball on the right-hand side here, and we're working down this side of the pitch. Dorgu is going to hold the width on the left-hand side and pin that fullback in. So what United could do, once again, is sort of use that overload in midfield, work the ball in these situations, and then eventually find Mount in a little bit of space like this, as we can see here. That was a really effective way for United to move the ball. And then once we're in these wide positions, it's back to overloads. We saw a lot of that last season. They looked a bit more free-flowing, I would say, in this particular match. I think on the left-hand side, it was often Bruno Fernandes that was responsible. So he would move forward and create that 3 versus 2 with Mount and Dorgu. We saw it very early on in this game. Nearly worked quite nicely in this particular moment. On the right-hand side, it's a little bit different because, of course, we don't have a Bruno Fernandes on the right-hand side. So on the right, it actually tends to be Lenny Yoro who's given that license to step forward. We know that he likes to be quite aggressive with his positioning. In possession, he likes to come forward. And again, we saw that in this game. He could move forward down the right-hand side. There's Ahmad, there's Dalot. Casemiro, doesn't need a second invitation to get forward. So again, we could see situations like this where it's 4 versus 3. So I still think United need to get into these areas more. Again, like I said earlier, we didn't control possession and sustain attacks as much as I would personally like. I still think we need to see more of that. But I still think it's quite promising that we can get into these positions, we can create those overloads, and then at the end of it, still have a good number of players in the box. I think, again, it was pretty good. Now, the final thing that I want to talk about is the Manchester United high press. And once again, this feels like something that we talk about a lot. It's been a big discussion ever since Amorim came into the club. And in this match, we saw a slightly different structure. But more importantly, we'll get to the structure in a second, we saw great intensity. Again, the physicality, the fitness levels of these players looks really good. I don't know what Amorim and the coaches have been doing in the off-season, but whatever it is, it's working. I knew we were going to get that with Amorim. I think we all felt that physically he would really drive the standard at the club. But it's working. These players look fit and athletic. Of course, it's only pre-season. Bournemouth aren't up to full speed. We're not either. But that's 2 games in a row now where I would say we have played Premier League opposition and physically looked superior, which is fun to see, especially when you consider the fact that this particular 11 didn't have Cunha. He was rested because of fatigue. We haven't seen Mbumo yet. This was last season's team, yet physically it looked much better in terms of intensity, the ability to get across the pitch, snap into tackles, and keep doing it for that first hour of the match whilst they're on the pitch. So that was good fun. They were also helped, though, by the structure, which was more of a 4-4-2 press from Manchester United. So how does that work? Because initially we're a 3-4-3. Well, Mason Mount, starting as the left forward, would actually come a little bit further forward and join a front 2 with Rasmus Højlund. What we would then see is Dorgu, the left wing-back, moving a little bit further forward. Shaw, the left-sided centre-back, is going to move across to left-back. Maguire and Yoro are going to move across. Dalot is going to tuck in a little bit deeper. And Ahmad is going to move to more of a right midfield position. 4-4-2 press, as you can see here. This is quite a clear 4-4-2 from Manchester United. And again, in this position here, Manchester United in the 4-4-2. And what I like about the shape is it allows United to match up pretty much all over the pitch. We've got the front 2 that can go with the 2 opposition centre-backs. We've got the wide midfielders that can push onto the full-backs if we need them to. We've got those central midfielders who can go man for man. It just feels like an easier structure for Manchester United to use. If we look across that back 4, right now, they're all in positions that suit them. Shaw's at left-back, Dalot's at right-back, 2 centre-backs in the middle. It seems quite logical. It seems a more natural shape for Manchester United to use. Still a couple of concerns though, which is natural when you're trying something a little bit different. A couple of errors. I think Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro long term aren't going to work as a double pivot. They probably don't have enough physicality, enough athleticism. to cover the ground that you need in a double pivot. So we probably still need a signing in there, or is it Ugarte? Possibly. He could be a solution in there. We'll have to wait and see. The other problem was just the occasional spacing error, which, like I said, is to be expected when you're trying something a little bit different. And just the error we had was sometimes these wide midfielders were just a little bit too wide. They were a little bit too wide in their zone, and it almost created quite an easy passing lane through, like we can see here. But that's just a slight concern. I think, generally speaking, the big positive is that physically we looked really, really good. Bournemouth couldn't really get close to us from a physical point of view. We looked so much sharper than them. We were first to most balls in this game, most contact, which was great to see. And I also like the idea of the structure. Not perfect in this game in terms of the spacing, but when the spacing was good, Bournemouth couldn't handle us. Bournemouth couldn't really get out from the back. And that's great to see from Manchester United. I said this the other day, we want to be a team that is dominant, that presses high and tries to win the ball back nice and high. And I felt we saw that in this game. We were aggressive in the high block and in the mid block. Low block, a little bit passive, but the rest of it nice and aggressive, playing on the front foot, getting the ball back. And there were spells of this game where it genuinely felt like we were blowing Bournemouth away. So yeah, all in all, a really good performance from Manchester United and a really entertaining night of football. I just thoroughly enjoyed it, which is nice as a Manchester United fan. We shouldn't get too far ahead of ourselves. This is just a pre-season game. Bournemouth aren't fully up to speed. They're not fully fit, although neither are we. But I think if you can't get excited about a 4-1 win, what can you get excited about, right? As almost removing analysis for a second, as a Manchester United fan, it's fun to see our team win 4-1 and play good football and, like I said, have spells where we blow Bournemouth off the park. Definitely still areas we need to improve. There are things we need to work on. Little details, particularly defensively, that need to improve. On the ball, I still think we need to find a way to slow it down and control the rhythm a little bit better, particularly at 3-0 up. You don't need to be so risky on the ball. You can kill the game by keeping the ball a bit more. So I would like to see United improving in that area. But in terms of what we asked for at the start of pre-season was progress. We want to see progress from match to match. And so far, I feel that we are seeing that. So this game really was job well done. So yeah, that's it. That is really all there is to talk about in this game. An impressive night from Manchester United that I thoroughly enjoyed. I hope you guys did as well. I also hope, that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. Also drop in the comments, and also if you could, please subscribe. And while you're at it, why not check out these 2 videos that we have recently uploaded? But apart from that, we're finished. So thank you guys very much for watching. Hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.